first? T21.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. Tom Foster here at Foster Web Marketing, here for our May 2013 webinar. And I have with me Danielle Rudeman, who runs everything practically around here. Certainly all the websites, getting them out the door, and now she's focusing on our services and making sure that we provide excellent content, SEO, social media, link building, all of it. And so she will be showing us what's the big deal with bounce rates. Right, Danielle?
That's right.
And we also have our good buddy, Zach Stone. Very cool name. It's not the Zach Stone that some of you might be thinking of. On Nickelodeon or what?
MTV.
Oh, sorry.
Nickelodeon. Come on. A little classier than that.
No, so we have our own version of Zach Stone here, and we're going to be talking about a very controversial, interesting, exciting, yes, topic of bounce rate. So without further ado, Daniel, why don't you get started in teaching what is the deal with bounce rates?
That's right, everybody. Today we are going to talk about bounce rates, and we picked this topic because when we talk to our own clients, there seem to be a lot of misconceptions about what a bounce rate is and why it matters and what you can do about it. So we wanted to clear some of this up for everybody so you have a better understanding of bounce rates, what they mean, and what you should do with them, what information they give you. Let's go ahead and start. So the first thing is a very simple slide. What is a bounce rate? And believe it or not, even though it's a fairly straightforward concept, there still is confusion. So according to Google Analytics, the bounce rate is the percent of visits that go only to one page before the person exits. That means that the bounce rate only applies to your landing page or the first page the person goes to. And you can see that illustrated in the diagram of a typical website. If the person jumps to, if they come through the search engines to your practice area page and then they leave, that is a bounce. No matter how long they stay, it just means they went to that one page of your site and left.
And I would like everyone to pay particular attention to the amazing arrows that have been drawn here
My
in our
stunning
presentation.
graphics, yes.
Those Danielle's amazing graphics.
Now.
Right.
And then we want you to understand that bounce rate is different from exit rate. This is another common question we get from our clients. And understand that if somebody were to come into that same practice area page in our example here, and then they were to go to another page on your site and then leave, that's no longer a bounce. That's an exit because they left after that first landing page. So bounce rate is when they leave from the page they land on, and exit rate is when they leave from a subsequent page.
And so our goal is always to keep them on the site. That's your goal, is to keep them engaged with your website and not leave. That's no new news, but that is what bounce rate is. So if you have a high bounce rate, if you have 10,000 visitors coming to your website, but you have a 90% bounce rate, then you really don't have 10,000 visitors coming to your website. So don't fool yourself.
Okay, we wanted to show you where you can see this information in Google Analytics. So when you first log in, here's an example of what you would see. As you can see the number of visitors, you can see the page views, all this other information, and then there's that bounce rate statistic, which is shown as a percent. So in this case, 63% of the people who landed on this website left the first page. We'll keep going. And this is where you would see what we want you to do is focus on your landing pages. So when you're talking about bounce rate, like we said, this applies to the very first page that the person visits. And if you look at this image, you can see over on the left-hand side of the menu in Google Analytics, this is where you find the statistics for your landing pages. Again, the first page that people come in on. And here's where you can actually look at those bounce rates. So if you look over on the right where we've highlighted the bounce rate, this is where you can see for all your top landing pages what your bounce rate is. And this is a good thing to keep an eye on so you can see if you have any bounce rates that stick out. You may have a page that for some reason is not doing as well, and you can focus your attention and dig in and try to look at more analytics and see if you can figure out why people are leaving that page and not going any further.
Are you going to give us some tips on how to fix bounce rate problems?
That's later, Tom.
Okay, good to know.
And we also wanted to point out the exit rate. And this is one thing that can get a little confusing. If you are looking at all of your pages, for example, look at the left menu. You can see I've circled all pages because this is the page you're on in Analytics. This shows every page that the visitors have gone to on your entire site. It's not just the page they landed on. So if they click through to a couple different pages, everything shows up on this report. And you'll notice that the bounce rate appears here as well. But remember, bounce rate only applies to those landing pages or entrances, which is why I put the arrow above entrances. That's what bounce rate applies to. So that number of people who visited that page. Your exit for that page is a percentage of people who left from that page. So again, just trying to highlight the difference between bounce and exit.
And so if we're looking at both of these, Danielle, we know that this is, so 277 people out of the 6,000, whatever the aggregate number was, came in on this page.
Right.
And they left on, 57% of those people left on this page.
Right.
So is this 74% people that came on this page and bounced?
It's 74% of the 277 who entered on that page.
Right. And so really, if we look at, this is, we need to do the math on whatever 74% is of 277, whatever left over.
Right.
57% of those exited from that page.
And you would not want to do, if you're looking at a 74% bounce rate, you would not look at the total page views of 1,300. That's a mistake some people make because they think their bounce rate, the number of people who are leaving, is higher than it really is. It's 74% of the 277.
Yeah.
Because it's of the people who initially entered.
Okay.
All right. And then what you might be wondering is, why do people leave the website? This is kind of a trick question here. They leave the website on the first page because they didn't like what they saw. They came, they saw, they take off because they don't like what they see. Or they came to your website, they liked what they saw, and they left. This is why it can be very difficult to figure out why you have a high bounce rate. There are some sites, for example, blogs, where if you have a lot of returning visitors who are coming back to read your content, they may only read that one page because they saw it in social media or one of their friends shared the page and they know of you and they're coming back to read that article, and then they leave because they read that one thing and they're happy and they go. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That's why you can't view bounce rate in a vacuum. You have to actually look into specific situations, segment your data, and understand who is bouncing and try to figure out why. And one of the questions Tigger's asking here is, how long was the person on the page? If they were on there for just a second and took off, I seriously doubt they got any good information from your page. But if they were on there for a minute or two, that means they probably read a good amount depending on the length of the content. So again, the time on page is what matters. And guess what? The search engines know how long people stay on your pages. Just because you have a high bounce rate, like I said, is not necessarily a bad thing. If they stayed for a long time, that can indicate that the piece actually has something to say.
And yeah, think about your own habits when you're doing searches for stuff that you're interested in. If you're going to search for sunglasses or, a pair of shorts or, a surfboard, you're going to do your research. And people are not different when they're looking for lawyers or doctors or any other service. When you are looking for a doctor, you're going to go do your research. And just start to pay attention to your own habits about, and I'm not saying that you should do everything the way that you do it, because we totally preach against that, but just start to kind of pay attention to what you see on a website or what you don't see on a website that keeps you around. And I watch other people. I always constantly study, as we all do here, other people's reaction to websites. I tell them to go look at such and such, and I was just doing it this weekend with some friends when we were looking for information about a destination. And he kept on like, well, there's no pictures here, there's no video here, there's no pictures, this site sucks. And it's interesting that that's what people expect to see now, is that interaction very quickly on. Don't make me hunt for it, I just want to find it right away. So just pay attention to what you're doing and what your staff, what your wife, your spouse, your kids are doing, because that's pretty much what other people are doing when they do search. Okay. Wow, there's a lot of words here. I would bounce from this page.
Read this at your leisure. But this is just making the point that why do search engines care about the bounce rate? They don't necessarily care about the bounce rate. That's just something in Google Analytics for you to look at. What they care about is how long people are staying on the page. And again, the amount of time they spend on the page is an indication of the quality. If they come and leave quickly, that's not good. But like Dwayne Forster at Bing is saying, the time between when a user clicks on the search result and when they come back from your website tells a story. That quick visit maybe means your page isn't any good, but if they're going and staying for a little while, actually reading your content and then bouncing, that's okay. That means that that page is serving its purpose. It kept the visitor there. They actually stayed on the page to read.
Who's that a picture? Is that Zach? Did you release that picture?
Yeah.
Did you say it was okay to use?
Yeah, it's okay. Those are my fancy glasses.
And your bow tie.
And my bow tie. I'm classy.
That's some required dressing around here at Foster.
And this is a question we get a lot from our clients is, what is a good bounce rate? And the answer is, it depends. It really depends on your industry, the purpose of the page, and where the person is in your conversion funnel. We work primarily with attorneys and with doctors, and the types of websites that we build for our clients, which the goal is to be educational, provide information to people, and then draw them into a conversion funnel, that tends to have a higher bounce rate. So we look for bounce rates around 70% in our business. And as you can see on this list here, the third one down is blogs. You can see that blogs, because they are providing information, a discrete piece of information, you're going to have a high bounce rate. Because people are going to read the information, say, cool, I got it, and take off. Some other types of websites are going to have a lower bounce rate. So what you need to do when you're evaluating your own website's bounce rate and your own pages is understand the purpose of that particular page. Because you may think that you have a problem when really you don't, because we would expect that blog page to have a slightly higher bounce rate than anything else.
And the other thing is that, sending people, once again, keeping people on the site. So think about things that you can do on your website to send people to do, like clients. You can send them to get documentation, paperwork, or whatever. Of course, basic simple stuff, which is putting your newsletter online and sending out an email to, like, here's information that you might be interested in reading, that sends good direct and referral traffic to your website that sticks around, will decrease your overall bounce rate. The websites that for the law firms that are involved in the community and are participating in their local community generally have low bounce rates than the law firms and doctors' offices that are 100% focused on keywords and SEO games. Those have higher bounce rates. If you're just adding content for the sake of content and blasting stuff out there with no plan, you're going to have a higher bounce rate across the board, period. Right, Danielle?
Yes, Tom Foster.
Okay.
All right, so we have some tips here for analyzing your bounce rate. So I mentioned before that you want to segment your data, so you're not just looking at an overall bounce rate, which is going to tell you a very general story. You want to break that data up and look at some specific scenarios to understand what people are doing on your website. If you are a local business, which most law firms and doctors' offices are, you want to think about what your local visitors are doing. So you want to segment your data in Google Analytics by your location. Look at people in your state and look at the different towns and cities that you're focused on, that you care about. See what your bounce rate is in those areas. You may find, if you're doing things right, that people in your area have a much lower bounce rate, because when they find your site, they can see that you are focused on their geographical location and you understand their needs. So they're going to tend to stay on your site more than somebody from out of state or out of country. So it's really important that you take a look at your local data to see what's really going on, because you don't care as much about the people out of your area. However, look at tip number 2 here. If you are getting a lot of traffic from people outside your area, you want to look at what signals you're sending out into the big bad world. Remember that every time you put a piece of content on your website, it goes to planet Earth. It does not just go to the people in your neighborhood who you really care about. That's why you need to be conscious of what keyword locations you're putting in your page titles, in your meta descriptions, in the content itself. Are you sending the right signals so that you pull in local traffic versus national or international traffic? So if you take a look at especially your page titles and your meta descriptions, because that's what appears in the search results, and make sure they're not misleading, so people click on that and then find out, oh, I thought this was general information about this topic, when in fact it's specific to people in this location.
Yeah, and that's kind of a tricky little area, because obviously you want to be found in, you're not just in one city, in one county or whatever, you're in multiple areas. But remember that you have to be sensitive to overgeneralizing yourself. from a location standpoint. So looking at it from one lens, from an SEO standpoint, sure, you want to be found in all these different places. But think about it from a usability standpoint and somebody coming to that page. You're like, we handle everything from, the East Coast to the West Coast, we do it all here. You just generalized yourself, and so you have generalized yourself to a potential good client. So you have to kind of do a balancing act there of, you don't want to list all your cities, right off the bat. Where's your, and Danielle, you said it, where's your perfect client? Where do you want to get clients from? Just because the opportunity to get clients is everywhere, that doesn't mean that you want to focus everywhere. That's like us saying that, we do websites for every kind of industry, just listing them there. It would be much less appealing to attorneys and, that want to work with a very specialized web provider if we listed everything there. And then it's no different from you guys. And that has to do with your geolocations and your practice areas. Being very targeted, being okay to get rid of the stuff that, you get every now and then. That will come no matter what through your branding and through your referral base usually anyway, not from search.
And that really brings us to point 3, which is, whoops.
I got ahead of the game there.
You don't want to be generic, and we see this a lot where people will they'll try to write a piece of content that, like Tom said, addresses all your areas and all your practice areas, and you're being too generic. You really want to have really interesting, compelling, customized content for those specific towns and cities that you're focusing on and for those specific practice areas. Don't be generic. Really write targeted content. Each piece should really have a focus.
Yeah. So it's better to write individual pieces about a geolocation and a practice area, just focusing on that thing, than one homepage or practice area listing all the cities and everything at once. Like trying to make your homepage do all the dirty work or do all the heavy lifting is nearly impossible. Although it's got to do that. You've got to make an impression with it, but you don't want to hurt yourself by over-optimizing it.
Right. We always tell our clients, for your homepage, you want to be welcoming to all the different types of perfect clients that you cater to. If you have multiple practice areas or multiple geographic locations, remember they will all see your homepage, so you want it to be welcoming to all of them, and then you get them with additional content that you post that's specific to their area and to their practice area.
It's no different than, I love analogies. Here's one for you. So it's no different than when you invite someone to your house, you don't have their bedroom and the bed and the sofa, everything right in the foyer. Everything's not right there in the foyer as soon as they walk in the door. But it is obvious where they can go to find, here's where the kitchen is, here's the bathroom, here's where you go sit down, all that kind, and here's where you're going to be staying. Think about your website in the same way. And I'm not saying go put welcome to my website on the homepage, but it is very much that welcome, here's our world, and here's where you can find what you're looking for.
It should be fast and easy for people to get to where they need to go.
And that's an ever-changing thing. And that's why you have to stay on top of redesigning your website, because we are all subject to trend changes. And it's not because it's time to update your website. It's because people change their behaviors over time.
Their expectations.
Yeah, and you need to follow suit as a marketer. You're responsible for marketing your business. And if you don't stay with the times, if you're not in social media, you hear it all the time, but you're going to lose out to those people that are. And this is one of those things that you have to pay attention to. All right.
So our next 3-pack of tips here is for different devices and different browsers. Again, this is another way to segment your data. You want to take a look at the bounce rates for different types of devices. You can find all of this in Google Analytics, so you can see what's the bounce rate for people using different tablets, different desktops, different mobile devices. Are there any of those that have a high bounce rate? You may find that, for example, an iPhone 4 visitors have a super high bounce rate. That's an indication to you that there might be something wrong with the way your website is displayed on that device, and you can go check it out. This is a really good way to find device-specific issues that may be hindering visitors using that technology. You also want to consider user intent. People coming to you from a mobile device are going to have probably different desires than people coming to you from the comfort of their home on their desktop machine. So your mobile site should be optimized and easy to use for people using that small mobile browser. So remember, you may be able to fix some bounce rates with different devices by thinking about what the user is trying to do with that device. And then Look at your browser bounce rates. Again, you may find another coding issue or technical issue is that if you have a very high bounce rate in a certain type of browser, let's say Firefox or Internet Explorer appears to have a super high bounce rate, it could be that your page is not rendering correctly in that browser, and that's when you need to get your coding team involved to fix it. So again, just a way to dig into your data and look for a reason that you might have a spike in a bounce rate.
And this is kind of buried in here, but it's so important. Just talking about the mobile searches, the tablets, desktops, mobile. Every day, more people are choosing their mobile device as the go-to device to browse the web or do research. I mean, last we checked, I think it was, what, 23, 24%? I'm sure it's more than that now. But think about your own habits with that, too. People are not just searching for you for your phone number or your address anymore. I mean, people are using these as, and some of you do already, your iPad, your tablet, already using those as your main working research vehicle. And that's, it might not be where you type out your briefs and do your questions and interrogatories or whatever, but you're probably sitting at home watching TV or watching the kids and, checking your iPad for your email and doing research and participating in your social media. That's what people are doing, and that's where your best and most potential clients are today and in the future. I mean, it is the 20 and 30-somethings that are now where you should be targeting, and you have to be paying attention and making sure that your site not only looks good but behaves well in that space.
Usable, right.
Yeah. Okay. And these are all little nuggets, things that you need to be paying attention. It's not just, how am I ranking on page 1? That's the dumbest question to ask nowadays. You need to really know all of these things, because you could be blissfully ignorant of your own existence by being on page 1 for your one vanity term that you tell that your Yellow Pages rep that you want to be there, and all he does is focus on that one thing that you say, and you're there, but you're like, why am I not getting any business? And why are all these other guys coming up? Because you're comfortable in your little environment. And we're telling you right now, don't get comfy, because it changes constantly. We certainly aren't comfy around here.
And that's a good point Tom made, is that this is not a one-time activity. Even with the, looking at your analytics, you may get all excited and go look at each one of these things, find you have an issue, and then move on with your life. You need to do this on a regular basis. Segment your analytics, look for potential issues, and resolve them, because things will change. So make sure that you integrate looking at your analytics, looking for these kind of things into your monthly activities with your marketing. It's part of
constantly. It's part of your routine.
Another way to segment your data is to look at new visitors versus returning visitors. And again, we want you to segment that traffic because each one has a different reason for viewing your site. A lot of times you're going to get new visitors through a social media referral or because they found you through organic search, and they have a certain thing in mind. They typically want to have a question answered. Whereas the returning visitors, they already know about you. They may follow you on social media. They may have your newsletter. And they may be coming just to read an interesting article or piece that you put up on your website, and they may bounce right away. So you may be comfortable with that high bounce rate for your returning visitors because they're just continuing to come back and read your content. And you also want to be thinking about, are you creating content and conversion funnels for your new visitors? You want to be thinking about why people come to your website, again, like we said, and make sure that for those new visitors, there's somewhere else for them to go. If they've just discovered you through an organic search or through that social media referral, do you have some related articles on the page they can visit? Do you have an offer that they can download? Do you have an easy way that they can contact you if they like what they see? They're just getting to know you. It's like the first date. You don't want to make it hard for them to get in touch with you again.
No, that's good. And I'd like to see a little more depth. I don't think we have time to go into it here, but this is stuff that we're working on ourselves, which is creating this content and conversion funnels. I bet you everybody's like, what the hell does that mean? And let's get into it a little bit further, because we've been doing it ourselves, and it's really what Danielle said is like making sure that you have related content that continues. What you want to do is remain interesting. So if people land on any particular page, you want to create almost breadcrumbs that leads them into other pages. And you see this, Amazon's great at doing this. You bought this, Now you might be interested in this. It's creating this funnel for you to continue to go down and buy things from them. And they've gotten very good at that. Because your websites are informational based, you have to be intriguing in your information lead. So you have to know, well, if most of the clients that I talk to that if they want to know about, how to get a hand on a copy of their speeding ticket or whatever, or their accident ticket, then they also ask these questions. And so it's based on your own understanding of your client to where you put related links to further questions. And that page should have more questions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's very sophisticated, but this is how you make this work much better for you and truly make you a resource that people will go to. Not just people, but other places, other blogs, even Wikipedia could find your stuff interesting as a result of doing things this way.
And our next 3-pack of tips is for, I live
Yeah,
in the
like
country,
these
I
three
don't love
tips.
ticks.
I like these 3 tips.
So here are your 3 tips for segmenting your traffic source. So you want to take a look at your bounce rates for the different types of traffic coming to your website. You've got your direct traffic. Those are the people that will type your domain name into the browser. You've got those people coming to you from social media. You've got those people coming to you from that organic search that they did, from referrals from other websites, paid search. There are a number of different ways that people can come to your website and find your content. And you want to understand how each different type of user interacts with your website. You want to see if there's a bounce rate issue with one of these referral types, because then you can go investigate. For example, you may find that people coming in from Facebook have a very high bounce rate. That's when you want to investigate your social media campaign and see what the heck are we putting on Facebook and why don't people stick around? Why don't they seem to like it, especially if they're not spending much time on the site? And that's the point of number 2 here, is adjust your strategy. When you see these high bounce rates and low time on site, do something about it. And segmenting your data allows you to be very targeted with the types of changes that you're making. And I think we already covered number 3.
Yeah, social media is a big thing, and that's a whole nother science. And social media, we put it in one category, but it really, each social media monster, what do we call them, juggernaut that we know of today, you deal with Facebook differently, you interact with Facebook differently than you do Twitter, than you do YouTube, than you do LinkedIn.
And that's because your clients have different expectations when they go to each one of those sites. And that's
Right.
what you want to learn as you post content. You see what works and what doesn't. Looking at the bounce rate for these different sites can help inform your social media strategy.
And the strategy for social media is not to ignore it. That doesn't work. We get it from lawyers all the time. Like, I don't even know social media works. Well, most of these guys aren't doing it. And it's easier for them to say that. And I'm sure that the guy that when our older lawyers first got started, TV was a new concept, and lawyers did not do anything on TV because it was beneath them. And we're getting a lot of that pushback for social media as well, because it's not comfortable, and same with video. It's not comfortable, and it's not in their comfort zone of marketing. We as marketers, we have to reach out of our comfort zone all the time, because that's just the change in trends when it comes to marketing. And so this whole new social media and all the different kinds of ways to do it, the choice is you never have the choice, don't do it. You'll be out of business, guaranteed. If you don't do it, embrace social media in a winning capacity, you're going to get beat up by everybody that is, because that is the future. And that train is coming fast on the track. I mean, with Facebook Graph coming out and Google trying to get into social media and this big fight, that's really where everyone is going. So I'll get off my soapbox, but it's very important. I mean, you're going to see that if you engage in it, you will get clients from social media, and they'll be some of the best clients you've had.
I think the point to take from there is that you might not be using it, but your ideal clients are using it. And so if you want to get those ideal perfect clients for your company, then you need to use social media to your advantage and not ignore it, because young people, middle-aged people use it today.
The highest growth area for Facebook is 50 to 60-year-olds, right? I mean, like, isn't that the data? All right, social media data point, Michael Knademan.
Yes, the biggest growth for social media is between that 50 up to 65-year-old range, because now more and more people are trying to get in touch with their kids in college, as well as their grandchildren.
This is why my mother-in-law is now on Facebook.
Yeah.
And that growth makes sense because the people my age, younger, in college, after college, got it. So that growth it's new markets, it's new people you can reach, take advantage of that.
Yeah. There's a South Park episode completely dedicated to trying to get, what's his name, on Facebook, and he wouldn't do it because of his grandmother.
Stan.
Right. So Michael knows about it. We'll send you the link to it. But you might, and it is what it is, guys. So we won't beat it to death, but let's, if you're not doing it, and here's the thing is, like, I do myself, my own Facebook stuff. Every now and then I'll tweet something, but I have people that can do it better than me anyway, and they help me do it right. So I'm not saying that you need to go run out and do it yourself, but there are people out there that are smart, that can show you and can work with you in a professional environment to use your social media strategically in a marketing way. Okay, enough on that. And if you need help doing that, let us know, because we can help you with that.
So another thing to keep in mind is that you may have analytics code installed incorrectly on your website if your bounce rate looks off. So if overall you seem to have a very high bounce rate, or you have a very, very low bounce rate, you want to check and make sure that your code is installed correctly. And this is the same for individual pages. You may notice that some pages seem fine, but other pages have a suspiciously low bounce rate, and you're pretty sure, while you think your content's good, it ain't that great. So this is a good time to check and make sure that that code is in there properly. And if you are trying to do anything special with analytics, where you have a lot of special tracking features or codes that fire off at different points when people interact with your page, you may want to have an analytics expert take a look at your code if you ever have any doubts, just to be certain. Because if you're not getting good data, you're not going to be making good marketing decisions.
And Google has changed its code to be added to websites over the years, too. It's like where they can gather more data. And if you haven't updated it, you're probably not getting the most out of it. Just like if you haven't upgraded your cable since they first came out with cable, and you're not running ever, efficiently. The same thing is true here. Good.
Yep. All right, so we have some tips for a better bounce rate. I know Tom was excited about this. And number one, if you are trying to lower the bounce on a certain page of your website, one thing you can do is add video.
That's the best thing that you can do.
That's why it's number one, Tom
Right.
Foster.
The best thing. Thanks, Danielle.
Another thing you want to take a look at is how fast your website is loading, and not just your home page. A lot of people make the mistake of only taking a look at their home page, but they never take a look at their high bounce rate pages to see if there's an issue. We do see people try to load massive graphics to certain pages on their website, or they'll install some kind of social media plugin or widget that takes forever to load. A lot of these third-party scripts are very resource intensive, and people with a slower connection, they'll just never quite load your page entirely. So if you see a page with a high bounce rate, do some digging, use some of those page speed tools, and we have a report coming out soon about that, but use some of those tools to try to figure out why that page is loading so slowly, and then address it. There may be something you can do by optimizing the images on the page, getting rid of some unnecessary scripts, and if the page loads faster, that may be all you need to do in order to lower that bounce rate.
And some of those, before we move on, some of those can be Google code that are so bloated, right? As we've discovered on our tests. And Facebook, like putting the Facebook thing on the sidebar, all that stuff is just code bloat that doesn't provide you any benefit but make you feel better that you've slapped something on your website. But back to number one, Danielle, if you go just a minute.
Of course.
To adding relevant video. Because as most of you know, we have our own video studio, and we've been adding video to our website since we've been in business. And we are putting video, making video a big part of what makes videos work, what makes websites work better, way before anybody else was doing it. Why in the world would I invest in that if it didn't work? I mean, we do it ourselves, we stand by it. Anybody that has video on their websites works better than a video not on our website. I still don't understand why people don't have video on their website or just have crappy video. So if you've got bounce rate issues, as you discover, and you see, and you know that you don't even need to look to see if you have a bounce rate problem. If you don't have video, I'm telling you now, you have a bounce rate problem. So you don't even need to listen to this, the rest of it. You're done. So go run out and do some videos, because that is what will make the difference for you. Not only for fixing your bounce rate, which is more of a maintenance issue, but it will also help you with converting visitors to your site into buyers and people that will talk to you. And it will also, I mean, it just does everything that a website needs to do. So it's going to help you with conversion. It's going to help you with your bounce rate. It's going to help you with SEO, because video content gets found better, easier, faster than regular content, hands down. So if you're not taking advantage of video, and I mean syndicated video, you're losing out on a big opportunity. Okay, now I'm done. We can move on to number 3.
And our third tip here for a better bounce rate is, we've already talked about this in great details, use that analytics data to provide targeted content and a tailored user experience. Again, make sure you are taking the time to break down your client segments and look at those visitors, and making sure you're doing what each segment is expecting to work. So you have a purpose for each page and a way to keep the attention of each kind of visitor. The fourth tip here is to make sure your page title and your meta description accurately reflect your page's content. This may seem like a no-brainer or a 101 tip. However, you'd be surprised at the number of times we see a page title and meta description that don't quite reflect what's actually on the page. So if you make sure that's accurate, so when people click through and they end up on your website, that what they're seeing meets their expectations.
Yeah, that's like, hey, there's a pizza place. Let's go there and have some pizza. And you go inside, and they don't have any pizza. They're selling you Chinese food. You're going to leave. Well, Zach, you might not, but you like Chinese food. But you might be like, yeah, I hate pizza.
I think that comes back to the fact that Google wants you, the users that come to your website, to interact with it, and that's the whole point with bounce rate. So if you're bringing the correct users to your website, then you won't have to worry about bounce rate. And this is the first step in making sure that the people you bring there actually know what they're going there for. If you bring them to the website and they don't know what they're going there for, or they think they're going there for something else, then you're going to have a high bounce rate. That simple as that. So make sure that you have an introduction to your website that makes sense and actually brings people who are interested in the content and the topics to your website and those different pages.
Yeah, don't try to trick them with some really sexy kind of title, and then they get there and they're like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah, this is not
they're going to
right.
remember that you weren't delivering on your promise.
Yeah, remember that you don't want to try to do everything on the first date. I mean, all you're doing at this point is basically, hey, do you want to get to know each other better? I mean, that's really where you're at. And so you don't want to, like, try to be sneaky at this point in the game with your page titles and your meta description, because that's going to kind of set the tone for the entire thing.
Are you saying it's okay to be sneaky in a long-term relationship?
Well,
Moving
So
on.
welcome back.
you just got to get started.
All right, so if you're trying to address bounce rate, if you have ads on your website, pay attention to where you are putting those ads, and if you have pop-up ads or something that users may find off-putting. If you've got a lot going on in the site, it's hard for them to find the content. There are certain content providers out there I know of, and I try to avoid clicking on their links when I see them come up in the search results, because I know they've got a ton of ads and things going on the site and I don't want to deal with it. So if you do provide ads, make sure they're well designed so it does not interfere with your user experience.
No lawyer should be putting ads on their website that sends them to another website away from hiring you to offer services. Just saying.
And the sixth tip, we keep saying this, but make sure you are actually providing awesome, compelling content. That really is the game changer there. Don't just slap up content for the sake of filling your quota where you say, gosh darn it, I'm going to write my 30 pieces this month, and you're putting up crap. You're really wasting your time. You want to spend some time thinking about your perfect clients, putting up that great content, and linking it to other great content on your website and on other websites. It's okay to link to other websites. You don't want to do it excessively. But if you show people that you're a good resource for great information, they will remember you.
And just a quick tip about that is, as we said before, this is not a sit on it and, it's on autopilot. It's not that you have to be paying attention. So let's say, for instance, all of a sudden your analytics shows you a high bounce rate for a page that was added last year. That happens a lot. All of a sudden, during a reindex, Google will find, hey, because of whatever else happened, Maybe it was another website that got gigged or whatever. All of a sudden your page is getting found #1 for a particular search term, and it's something that you added a year ago. And wow, look at this. Now, and what happens is it's got a lot of bounces because you find that you have a lot of links that are going to external websites. So what's happened is you have been able to get the search engines to find your page, but everything is bouncing immediately because you have external links coming immediately off your page. So if that kind of situation is happening, the way to solve that is you take that landing page and you still have those helpful links, but you take that landing page that you see is now being found, and then you create those pages internally that you're sending them out. So if it's like the Department of Transportation, instead of linking that landing page directly out to the Department of Landing, you can have it, here's some more other resources that you might find of help, and link that to an internal page which might list a bunch of other Department of resources or whatever. And if that one becomes a big page, you would want to set it up again and see where we're going with the creating that content cone
Structure.
Yeah. And you have to constantly be monitoring that stuff, because it's not just you just leave it alone. You can't just leave it alone. You just got to continue to make it better and better.
an internal search box from Google. You can actually buy one with ads, or you can pay for it to be ad-free, and then people can type their search term right into your own website and look for relevant information. So if you have a very content-rich site, this is a good way to keep people on your site looking for information from you.
We lost the audio.
Okay. Hang tight. I don't know. I think it's something to do with.
We're back on now.
Alrighty.
We lost last 3 minutes.
Last 3 minutes?
Okay. Well, I guess we lost some audio there for a little bit. Hopefully it recorded and we'll get that out there. Sorry about the technical problems, but we'll try and finish up here.
Okay, we had just finished up talking about putting an internal site search on your website. And you can actually get a search box from Google. There's a free version that has ads on it, and you can add that code to your website and have a search box right on your website. And they also sell an ad-free version. There are other ways to do this, but that is a good way to provide an easy way for people to find information right on your own website. And we have a whole list of interesting blogs here, and if you are fascinated by the wonderful topic of bounce rates and what to do about them, here's some great links that will go out with the presentation, and you can check them out. Any final words? Zach Stone, Tom Foster?
Well, I think that was pretty thorough.
That's great, Danielle.
Yeah, Danielle, I mean, always bounce rate is something that we always need to pay attention to. And it's, you know, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, do things on your website that keep them there longer. Video, links to other pages. So I think that's it. I mean, I think we've had some technical difficulties here in the last 5 or 10 minutes. I don't know if everybody's still on the line and can hear us, but certainly if we missed any of the recording, we'll get it out to everybody. Definitely we'll get out this presentation so you guys can check into all this stuff. And we're always available to answer any questions. Wait, we got some questions, Mike?
Yes, we do. We have one question right now from Steve Richardson, who's asking, is 75% still a good bounce rate for an attorney?
What we say is get your bounce rate to below 75%, and that's based on our experience with hundreds of lawyer websites. It's just what we've seen seems to be a good average. So that is a good target for you. Obviously, the lower you can get it, the better. But if you're taking a look at your content, your blogs, that is still your target.
And Christina asks, do you offer video production for websites in addition to websites?
That's funny, Christina. Of course we do. And breaking news videos for if you have any news that you want to get out right away. But of course, videos work even better on a Foster Web Marketing website, just because the way they're set up, not just because they're prettiest. And Steve Richardson, I got to send you something because you are always come to class, and you always ask good questions. So good job, buddy. What else we got?
We have a question from David Todd, who asks, in Google Analytics, how do you go to the page you showed that breaks down the bounce rate for different pages, landing pages, etc.?
If you take a look at the screenshot, I circled the left menu bar, and you should see which menu item to click on in Google Analytics. If that's not clear, we'll contact you and explain how to do it. It's pretty straightforward.
It's under content, and then top pages or top landing pages would be, and like Danielle said, it's circled in hers.
David, I have your email, so I can send that right to you.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we will be sending out the slides and the recording shortly after this, so
Let's make sure it's good.
keep a lookout for that. So you will have the slides in case you did miss some of the presentation when we dropped it off.
Okay, gang, and of course, if you need any help from us, we can certainly help you. Here's your call to action from us. We can help in any of these ways. If you have bounce pages, you don't know what to do, if you need an audit, we can do an audit, take a look at where we can help you with your site. We appreciate you attending the webinars, and let us know what other information that you want to know about that we can provide. On behalf of Danielle and Zach and Mike and Ariel, who sat in here with us, thank you very much. Trish, thank you very much for running the show. Thanks to everybody for attending, and have a wonderful Tuesday. See you next month. Adios.